A UV light sanitizer that attaches to your phone. That's our Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us from UVCeed, CEED, is Director of Research and Development, Justin Beyers. Thanks for joining us, Justin.
Glad to be here, Fred.
Well, tell us a bit about the company and its background, first of all.
Oh, sure. So UVCeed is a spin out of a medical research and development company, Benuti Technologies. So Dr. Benuti is a surgeon inventor who comes up with a lot of technologies in different spaces, a lot in the medical and surgical space. As a company, we have approximately 500 patent and pending applications. I function as the research and development director for that company. And one of the companies that has spun out more recently is UVCeed. During the pandemic, Dr. Benuti and I were discussing ways that we could take what has been developed or technology in the medical space and sort of bring that to consumers. We saw a need because both Dr. Benuti and I travel a lot for work to have something that you could easily be used and we with you all the time. So the product that we came up with was this UVC mobile light sanitizing phone accessory. I know that's a catchy name, but we call it UVCeed for short. And the device is small. It's about the thickness of a pin. I've got one here, and it has integrated MagSafe magnets on the back, as well as some sensors, a Bluetooth radio, and a battery. But what you do is you just connect it to the back of a MagSafe phone. If you've got an Android, we also ship a metal plate that the device can attach to. And then what we do is we tried to overcome what Peter and I both saw as limitations of current UV technology in the consumer space. So if you take UVC in a medical space, they have robots that go into operating rooms as well as patients' rooms, just the recovery rooms, and they'll wheel these robots in, or they can drive in, and they emit UV from all sorts of angles and very high output. And it's used to sterilize the room between patients. The consumer at this point had access to maybe UV wands or devices you can put your phone in. But the issue that we saw with that when we bought some of these during the pandemic lockdown is really you don't have a good feel for, are you using the device correctly? Is the device really treating where you think you're treating it? Because you can't see the UV rays. And also, are you holding the device or the UV sanitizer long enough in the space that you're sanitizing? Because UV takes energy, which is a combination of the wattage or the output of the light and time. So you want to get time and wattage together. So what we did to overcome the limitations that we saw in the consumer space is we did a meta-analysis of over 500 different pathogens. We looked at different types of viruses, bacteria, even protozoa and fungi, and came up with a predictive algorithm that we use to estimate the level of reduction at a certain surface. And so that sort of got one of the two issues we saw with consumer electronic, adoption of UVC sterilization is, one, am I using it long enough? So, when you use our device, and on our website as well as on our YouTube channel, there's some videos of this that you can watch. But when you use the device, as you're treating, it will give you a real-time estimated reduction of any pathogens that may be on your keyboard or whatever you're treating. And it'll tell you, if you hold this in this spot for so many more seconds, you'll get a 70% reduction. And it tells you the different milestones, 90%, 99%. But that was only one of the two issues that we saw with the current technology. The second one is because the light is out of the visible spectrum, you really just don't know what you're cleaning. If you're going along with the Clorox wipe or something, you can sort of wipe the table and see where it's wet. UVC doesn't give you that. So what we did is then we leveraged augmented reality and machine vision in the phone app. So while you're treating with the device, you pull up the UVCeed phone app, and you can, like I say, keyboards I always use because I've got a computer here in front of me. But one of the big uses that I personally like them for is like airplane tray tables, and TV remotes in hotels. But as you treat it, what you'll see is on the phone app, we overlay, using the sensors in our device, a appropriately sized marker, if you will, and you paint the area you're treating. And the longer you stay on an area, you see the paint, if you will, go from a light blue to a dark blue, the darker blue indicating you've hit a 99.9% reduction, and the light blue is as low as a 70%. But what that allows the user to do now is clean something and actually know where they're cleaning. Once you're done with it, you can release the button. And if you're sort of a geek like I am, and probably a lot of internet people are, you can go back over the app and look at the estimated reduction of all the different spaces you've cleaned. So we create a 3D space of what you're looking at, and this overlay stays through the whole time you've got your app open. So if I clean my keyboard and then go clean my phone over here, I could come back to my keyboard, and as I move the map or the phone around and watch the app, I get a estimated reduction of bacteria, of COVID, of viruses, more general viruses, as well as a total estimated reduction. The last thing that we sort of did is we implemented machine vision to make this device really safe. So, the current UV wands that you may see out there, the OSHA has regulations, and there's regulations for everything. But one of them is to make sure people stay safe, because you don't want to get UV in your eyes. You don't want to get it too much on your skin. It can cause something as minor as like a sunburn, but prolonged exposure is not something that we want to have. So what we did is, since we're watching everything through the app, we use machine vision to recognize if you're over a hand or any part of the human body, over a cat or a dog, and the app will warn you. We say, oh, we've detected a human, or we've detected an animal, and we'll pause the output until you move the device away from that area, and we'll restart the treatment. So what we wanted to have was this device that, as people start to venture out a little bit more, as work people or work travel, I guess, starts to resume, something that can give a little peace of mind as you start getting back on airplanes or buses or any area where you're out and about.
The device is pretty small, has to be to fit on the back of a phone. What does that mean as far as the length of time it takes to sanitize, say, a keyboard?
You can do an entire,
and the battery life as well.
Yeah. So the battery, those are great questions, because one of the things that UV LEDs do is, compared to a normal LED, is they take a lot of current. Compared to a normal current or a normal LED. So we have a pretty large battery in here. For me personally, I carry mine quite a bit and use it. We like to say you can get between 2 to 3 days and a week's worth of usage out of it. I charge mine maybe about twice a week when we're doing coding, because I use it constantly. But for normal use, I charge mine about once a week. It's got a USB-C connector, so you just plug it into your laptop or whatever you need to charge it. As far as how long it takes to sanitize a keyboard, part of that depends on, if we're looking at a keyboard, the level of reduction you want to get. So one of the things that we sort of chart is our estimated reductions. Now, for me, some days, if if my kids have been using my computer, maybe I don't care if I get a 99% reduction, because I probably have most of their germs anyways. But just to be safe, sometimes I'll just go real quick. And to get like a 75-80% reduction of a computer keyboard, you're really just talking seconds. Now, if you go all the way to a 99.9% reduction of a full keyboard, you're still in the second range, but maybe like 20 seconds for a keyboard, because you have to sort of paint on the the cleaning, as you will. So you'd have to wipe down. And we tried to make that time comparable to even a Clorox wipe. One of the things that people don't always realize is that, a lot of people will wipe something down and they'll assume as soon as they wipe it down that everything is been killed or it's clean. You're actually, even with a Clorox wipe, if you read them, you're supposed to wait, I think, between 30 and up to a minute or so to make sure that the chemicals in the cleaning wipes have killed all of the virus or bacteria. So we tried to balance, the portability and power, and we think we came up with a compromise that works well for most people.
So what should people know about what this can and can't do, perhaps?
Well, one of the things that, we get a few questions occasionally. Well, can you treat someone who has COVID? I think everybody's got a little bit of concern on that. Obviously, we can't. You can't use this on your hands. You can't use, realistically, you wouldn't want to take this into an operating room, even though we designed medical stuff and approached it from that. You wouldn't want to necessarily treat an entire room with it because, that was never the intention, and so you can't treat, like I mentioned, you can't treat people, you can't treat an entire room, but what it can do is give you the ability to really treat your everyday objects, the stuff that you may come in contact with daily. I mentioned computer keyboards, but for me, another one that, and I don't consider myself a germaphobe, but some of these I've always had issues with even before COVID. The gas pumps during the wintertime, the gas pumps at a gas station. I always go back to airline because I used to travel a lot for work, and I feel like everything in that airplane has been touched by people who haven't washed their hands in weeks. I don't know if that's really true or not, but so it can treat all of those things you interact with on a daily basis. You can, we've talked to people who use it for stuff outside of COVID. Or just standard disease stuff that we don't think about, that there's been people have had other products that were maybe niche products for cleaning stuff like makeup brushes, which I know very little about, but apparently you don't want bad things growing in there, so you can use it pretty much anything that you come in contact with. I think that, we've sort of designed it to be used for, I won't say small objects, but again, not room size objects. So, it's something that whether you're out in a restaurant, we'll do it when we've got the kids, the kids always want to pick up and play with, I'm sure anyone who has had kids, if there's a ketchup bottle, if there's a salt shaker, even if they don't need it, they've got to pick it up and touch it. And that stuff doesn't get wiped down as much as it should have. It gives you the ability to sort of control your environment, at least what you interact with, and make sure it's clean.
Can it help with, say, water?
Yeah,
shining it into a glass of water, for instance?
That's an interesting question, because that's one of the things that, in the current software configuration, we don't necessarily have it set up for that. But from the very beginning, that's been something that Dr. Benuti and I have talked about, especially because a lot of our early stuff, our early discussions, as I mentioned, has to do with both of us doing a lot of, travel. And every once in a while, you always think about, when you're on these airplanes or when you're in another country, boy, is this safe for me to drink? Now, one of the things that we're hoping to put in an upcoming software release is that the device itself has an accelerometer in it. So what we do, one of the things I didn't mention, is we sort of track, the position of the phone in the device, because we are using the camera as part of the system. And obviously, if the device isn't on the phone, then the system doesn't function well together. So to make sure that the user is using it correctly, we track them in a 3D space. Now, one of the things that we're currently working on is something that related to that is the idea is a secondary mode of operation based off of separation. And one of those that we've been looking at is the treatment of fluids. So like when you grab a cup of coffee on an airplane or a glass of water, you could sterilize it, and it uses a slightly different equation. So that's why we want to separate the two modes. Yeah, if you stick it over water, does UVC kill pathogens in water? Yes, it does. But it would be a different predictive algorithm than the surface contact. So that's why we're adding that separate mode of operation.
Tell us about the availability and pricing.
Yeah. So right now, we're doing a little bit of pre-orders, as I'm sure that you've heard from many of your other guests. The electronics manufacturing has been a bit of a challenge these days. I've been in the industry now for over 20 years, and parts that I used to be able to go on to DigiKey and grab now suddenly have long lead times. So we do have a little bit of a delay on some of our deliveries, but not too bad. So we're looking at pre-orders that are happening right now to be shipping by the end of this month, with a full rollout starting next month. And we're hoping to be in some box stores and some other things. We're working on those contracts now. Our price point that we're trying to hit is $149. I won't say trying to hit, that's already established. I misspoke there. So the price point of the device will be $149.
And for more info and maybe to order, where can people go?
Yeah, they can go to our website. It's at www.uvseed.com. We also have a social media presence on most of the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I think those are all of them. I'm not the social media expert, but I think those are the big ones.
Terrific. Again, it's UVCeed.com. Justin Beyers, thank you for taking the time with us.
Thank you very much, Fred.